Greetings builders! We're in the first month of Crucible and as you guys know, this league is a big success. Have you guys already played many builds? Are you looking for the next one? This is great because today I'm gonna show you builds for 3 skills that are among the most played on Crucible. Don't forget that you can find a PoE and complete guide for all those meta builds in the video description. Let's start with the most played skill, the one that over 10% of high level players are using. I'm talking about the Val Lightning Arrow Deadeye with the Ranger class. With all those returning projectile shenanigans that Crucible brought, we now live in the time of archers. With very little investment that pretty much doubled most of attack projectile damage. Now Lightning Arrow got even more with its Val version that is awesome to kill bosses. To list the pros of this build, I'm not sure if I would start with its clear speed or boss damage, because both are out of this world. This build is also not complicated to put together, it's definitely the perfect mid-league build to be playing right now. Now to list the cons, I would start with its cost. Because of Lionel's fall, this build is quite expensive right now, but I'm sure that in a few more weeks the prices will drop. About the budget, as I just mentioned, is an expensive build right now. You need around 5 divine orbs to put it together. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipments that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. You only need 2 mandatory unique items for this build. The first is of course the Lionel's Fall Jewel that grants many useful nodes in our passive tree. Next, we also need a Yoke of Suffering Amulet that causes all of our elemental damage to shock. This way our enemies take a lot more damage. For clear speed, I'll give it 10 out of 10. You fire many projectiles with high attack speed and those projectiles return to you, pierce enemies and bounce off walls. You even have your Mirage Archer to fire more projectiles, no one can survive that. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. Using 2 Val Lightning Arrows plus your ballistas on bosses will kill them so fast that you won't believe it. For the survivability, I'll give this build 9 out of 10. You have armor evasion and spell suppression that grants almost 50,000 effective HP, but the main reason why this build is safe is because you can kill everything from a huge distance, you just need to mind your position. Now, keeping on the archer side, let's talk about this build that is being used by over 5% of high level players, the Tornado Shot Berserker with the Marauder class. As you guys know, archers have been the high node of Crucible. For that reason, items like Lionel's Fall have spiked in price and many players are having a hard time to feel powerful as an archer without spending a lot of divine orbs. But this build here is different, it doesn't require any mandatory unique item. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its damage. This Tornado Shot is a real boss destroyer. The clear speed is awesome as well. You are very fast and shoot many projectiles with high attack speed rate. It's amazing to clear packs and packs of monsters this way. Above all, as I just mentioned, this build is also not expensive and very easy to put together. Now to list the cons, the first thing that comes to mind is the life degeneration and the extra damage taken from the Berserker Ascendancy. But don't worry, we have many defensive layers and instant life leech. As for budget, even though this build isn't expensive, it is not cheap either. You are going to need at least 2 divine orbs to put it together. For clear speed, I'll give it 10 out of 10. You fire many projectiles with high attack speed and those projectiles turn into many other projectiles that chain on enemies. You won't believe how many of them you can kill with just a single click of your mouse. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. Using all of your ballistas and activating berserker on bosses will grant you an incredible explosion of power that will make them look like regular enemies. For the survivability, I'll give it 8 out of 10. You have armor evasion and spell suppression that grants this build almost 70,000 effective HP. However, I took 2 points out because of the life degeneration and the extra damage taken from the Berserker Ascendancy. Finally, we have an awesome starter build that is being played by over 5% of high level players on Crucible, the Super Cyclone Slayer with the Duelist class. This build turns you into a walking blender with a huge area of effects, damage, speed and now even instant leech. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its clear speed. It's just amazing to be always moving and massacring all the poor enemies on the way. The boss damage is also amazing. Once the build is done, you are going to kill even the biggest bosses in seconds. Above all of that, this build is also very simple to put together, it doesn't need any mandatory unique item. Now to list the cons I would point a few important issues and I would like to ask you to pay close attention here. You see, this build has a great survivability once it's done, but when you're leveling your character you need to pace your progression because you're always very close to enemies. If you are not prepared, you are going to die. So take the extra time to pick up a few more levels before progressing to a high tier content. Another useful tip about your survivability is how to deal with stuns. On this build you get stun immunity with cluster jewels, but not everyone can afford them right away. In that case, while you don't have your cluster jewels, do this simple trick of picking those evasion nodes and this mastery. Believe me, it helps a lot. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 90 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps you need to invest around 115 chaos, and for easily completing retros I recommend investing around 6 divines. For clear speed I would give it 10 out of 10. Cyclone never stops moving and you can farm your maps without needing to stop for casting or anything like that. It's just awesome and very satisfying. The boss damage is great and deserves 9 out of 10. Prepare yourself to destroy even the biggest bosses in just a few seconds. Now for the survivability I'd only give 8 out of 10. But don't get me wrong, this build still has over 80,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion, spell suppression and instant life leech. I just took the 2 points out because you're always very close to enemies, which puts you in a vulnerable position. And that concludes our meta builds video. Are you playing any of those? Next Monday I'll be back to show you 3 more meta builds for Crucible. I wish you all a great week ahead and don't forget to keep building.